a lot has been happening over the last, let's just say 72 hours or so, that a super league was discussed about college football, and not only college football, but only for college football, meaning that a super league would only be for that sport. Every other sport, it would not happen. Basketball, baseball, others. And Joe immediately, I forget the gentleman's name from On3, reported, along with Ross Dellinger, that this is just not going to happen while Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti are the commissioners of their respected conference. I guess, Joe, the model that was put out was like European soccer of how they do things. Mm-hmm. I got to admit, it's not going to work for me. I think that it would be so dumb to do that. Again, like I've told you, we have a model in place literally in the United States when it comes to a 16-team playoff, okay, that has had success while having conferences, while playing teams inside your conference. Now, the money discussion, I don't think is a big deal because, Joe, you're just talking about seeding. What do I mean by that? You already have agreed to the automatic qualifiers, right? So with that being said, and the playoff still giving you their top 12 every week or after the midway through, the FCS model has worked while maintaining conferences. Doing a big-ass super league does not and will never work in the States, especially for football. It would be the dumbest thing that has ever happened.
I'm already completely off the –
You think it's going to work?
Okay, so first of all, College Sports Tomorrow is the entity that pitched this. And some of the members that are represented in College Sports Tomorrow, these aren't just random,
I don't give two
investment. Wait. I'm just adding the context. The context. This is not like supporting evidence or anything. It's not like this is some other group of sports executives from other leagues that are trying to put this together. Right now, it is Syracuse's Chancellor Kent Sieverd, West Virginia's President Gordon Gee, and Brian Rolap, and then a top executive under Roger Goodell with the NFL's league office are just some of the notable names that are part of this.
And what are they doing in there anyway?
What do you mean?
None of those schools should have any say-so on what happens in college football because their schools are ass.
See, this is why we can't, first of all, immediately diminish a quality idea just because certain people bring it to the table. I firmly think that this is one of the first constructive building blocks. I'm not saying that this is the end-all solution that needs to be enacted, but I think that this is the most coherent building block that we can move on from, that Tony Petitti and that Greg Sankey can investigate and analyze and take certain aspects of it and use it for the future of college football. Yes, the FCS playoff has operated successfully for a period of time, but it is a much lower level of competition with a lot less money at play. And also, it needs to be added in here, for the most part, the top teams typically usually win the FCS playoffs. So it's not like it's creating some super competitive
Why are we trying to create a competitive league like that now?
There are also a lot of conferences that operate in the FCS with a lot of dog shit, just complete. Perfect example. The NEC is so desperate to add teams, it just added Mercyhurst. Mercyhurst was a 2-9 Division 2 or 3 team last year that has never been a competitive football program. This is where we run into problems, is that because in the current conference structure, these conferences are always looking for a competitive edge. They're always looking to get better. There's always going to be reshuffling, which leads to unworthy and shitty football programs being brought into certain conferences. Perfect example is Kennesaw State and Delaware moving up to the Conference USA Conference. All I'm saying is that I think,
but they're not qualified for what you and I are trying to talk about.
I'm just throwing that out there, that a perfect example of desperation is grabbing really low down to bring somebody up. I don't think it's unrealistic to think that the ACC, if somehow Florida State and Clemson, when their contract is up, say they can't get out of the lawsuit, say in 2036, when they leave, which they will try to leave, that they're scraping the bottom of the barrel and the ACC has UTSA and UTEP in it. That doesn't help the competitive nature, because the capitalistic environment of these conferences they're eating one another. We need one entity and one. You're talking about wanting to have a commissioner. The only way that we get a commissioner is that if there is a new league created. And I think it makes perfect sense to have 7 10-team divisions that compete with one another. I agree with you. With tearing it out is dumb. That's dumb.
You take out of the SEC then?
You think that Vanderbilt needs to stay in the SEC? Like that does nothing for me.
What are you going to do with the other leagues? And Joe, just throwing this out there. By the way, to your point, if you take those other leagues out, those 10 leagues, they're still going to have all the qualifying bids.
You're just all you would do is split them down the middle and just separate them.
Correct. But guess what? Some of those teams that you're talking about are still going to be in those divisions, and some of those teams are still going to suck. Vandy's still going to be in division and still be a part of it and still's going to suck. Same thing with the Big Ten. Those teams are still going to be in divisions and still suck. What do we? I don't really understand how that plays into whether or not this is a good idea or not. It's not a good idea. Joe, what is wrong with the regular season?
There's nothing wrong with the regular season, but we need to
hold on. If there's nothing wrong with the regular season, the reason that we're having these conversations is because not everybody can agree on the playoff. That's why we're having these conversations. The reason that you want a super league is because of the playoff. And what I'm telling you is you have a good model that's already in place.
I don't, and I think that most that are forward thinking don't look at this purely as we need the super league in order for the playoff to function better. This needs to happen in order, one, get a singular focused commissioner who's running things to be able to put a more centralized contractual NIL system. That is probably the most important part, is fixing the transfer portal NIL. And we can't have collective bargaining with the way that the NCAA
You're
operates.
not going to have.
This is this would be a separate business.
It's your newsflash. You're not going to have a collective bargaining agreement. Sorry.
We're going to have collective bargaining, and it needs to happen.
With the conferences or the schools. But you're not – you can do one entity. You don't have to get rid of the SEC, the Big Ten, fuck the ACC, none of them. You don't have to do away with them because of one fucking school. By the way, Title IX still exists. There's still things that you have to do to get there, which you can't do. By the way, you're talking about a professional sports league doing this. They are having success in fucking soccer. This isn't soccer. This is football. Hold on. I'll let you go and say what you needed to say. You don't need to do away with everything that you're doing in the regular season. What you're going to have to do, and by the way, you know why teams went out? Because the TV networks are not paying other conferences what they need to be. Joe, they're all going to be in 2 leagues at some point anyway. You're going to have the AFC and the NFC. That's what you're going to have. So regardless of how long you're going to, do you really think the ACC survives? You've been telling me that they're not going to survive. You think the Big 12 survives? They're more than likely not going to survive when TV deals are up. My bottom line here and my overarching theme is people are making very stupid decisions that have no business making these decisions. And by the way, the SEC and Big Ten will never go for this, ever, because it gets away from Greg Sankey. It gives away from Tony Petitti if you're doing one conference, one big super league. By the way, has anybody asked European soccer if they've had issues? Oh, that's right. They have had issues with these. The fans legitimately have issues with these things. They went to this out of desperation. And quite honestly, Joe, you don't need desperation in college football right now. You can all have one central voice that all 5 Power 4 commissioners can agree on decisions. What
okay,
why are y'all?
This is the wait. This is the biggest.
Hold on. Why are y'all trying to progress something that, by the way, just throwing this out there, the wheel's not broken. The wheel has not.
It is broken. That's the whole problem. It's fucked up right now.
No, the wheel is not broken. Can I tell you how the wheel's not broken? No, they're going to make more. Hold on. Please hold on. They're going to make more money now than they ever had. How is that wheel broken?
Just because for this very brief period of time for the next 5 years that there is a lucrative media rights deal for the college football playoff does not mean that we don't have crippling issues that will really debilitate and disrupt college football with NIL.
NIL in the portal has nothing to do with the
Yes, it does. Yes,
How?
it does. It has everything to do with it. One of the most important things that I just brought up a second ago, why this is necessary, is because instead of, and the reason why there's going to be never any progress for fixing NIL in the transfer portal is that because every different conference has a different amount of say on how they think it should be changed. But when there's one centralized voice, it makes negotiating with athletes a million times easier.
And you're every one of you who keeps saying this are missing the one big factor.
What?
Number one, you can't stop NIL. Okay, it's never going to stop.
It's not, but it's
You
that's.
can
I'm not
cap it,
saying.
but hold on.
It's not being suggested to stop it. That's not what's being suggested.
Fine. That's my point. If nothing is being suggested about NIL and how to fix things, that is a whole different conversation.
That's not what I just said. That's all I'm saying is that
exactly what you just said.
No, I just said it is not being suggested to just kill off NIL. What is being suggested is being able to properly and effectively negotiate with athletes.
And if you think, by the way, if you think that anything is going to change from the top dogs and who the top dogs will always be, Joe, I'm sorry. It's never going to change. When Alabama is rolling, Alabama is rolling. When Notre Dame is rolling, Notre Dame, Ohio State, LSU, Georgia, USC, it will never change. You want me to tell you one massive reason why? Because there's a mega billion-dollar booster who will never let his team fail. The failing that they will do is 9-3. See, y'all are trying to make more equal of this. There's never going to be equality. Regulating any of this is not going to work because the top dudes, the alpha males, the guys that sit up top will always be the alpha males and the alpha dudes up top.
This isn't being okay. You're bringing up very small parts of the conversation that aren't important for the whole argument.
Recruiting is never a small part of anything.
I don't disagree with that, but the whole there are. The point of this is not to create more equality within college football.
Then why can't tier 3 teams play tier 1 teams?
I'm removing that. I'm saying I agree with you that the tiering of playing teams does not make sense.
So
but okay, wait. I agree.
But you can't take that out if that's what they want to do. If that's the model.
No. Wait. Just because this is what
paragraph. It's literally in the first paragraph of the article that they want to do that. You can't just take it out because you want to win an argument.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Just because that was what the first pitch was does not mean that it will be in the final platform. You're 100% right. None of the schools are going to agree to that, and I think that will be the first thing that's going to be removed. But what I'm trying to say here, if that is taken out, everything else that is being pitched by them to me makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. There aren't more than 70 competitive college football teams in the country that are capable of showing up and winning football games.
Hold on.
We need to cut the fat.
I got to ask you a question. With all due respect, that's exactly what the college football playoff has put in part with automatic qualifiers, is it not?
No.
Bullshit.
If you win your conference, you're at least within the top 20 of the teams.
So if you have 4, Power 5 teams or Power 4 teams, that will get a certain number of teams in, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If Vanderbilt wins the SEC, then what?
But that's literally never going to happen.
No. They're going to be a part of the 70, bud.
But you're implying basically what's being implied by you right here is that the SEC has some sort of catastrophic situation where Vanderbilt, while still sucking, wins the SEC somehow. And then that it's unjust for them to go to the playoff.
You know a program right now that you could trim the fat of, but you won't? Move the argument to Florida. Joe, you will kick a team out that has 3 losing seasons. By the way, I'm going based off of everything I read in the article. Florida right now will be a tier 3 program. They won't play Georgia in your model of what you're trying to project. So then guess what you'll do? Let me tell you what you'll do. You'll say, okay, well, guess what? You're taking away rivalries. You're taking away teams that we want to play. Joe, the reason that these teams are going to conferences is because of geographical rivalries. Texas A&M, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. We forget about the Big West days. My only point is it will not work. You can have a conference and have a playoff, and if everybody's bitching about money, okay, well, then they're going to leave the conference. Joe, they don't want to be in conferences anyway. It's going to come down to a Big 2.
Okay, so this is where I get even more confused. And by the way, I'm done talking about the tier stuff because I don't support that. So I'm not going to sit here and argue with you about it because I don't support that.
That is the crux.
No, it's not. It's not the crux of the whole pitch. The whole crux of the whole pitch is that there's 70 teams that are broken up in a certain amount of divisions. There is one central entity that negotiates with a collective bargaining agreement on NIL in the transfer portal that would limit unlimited movement of players if they sign into a deal, like I had been talking about this whole time, that there need to be contracts that you're forced to stay at a school for a certain period of time if you sign to pay for a certain amount of money. And more importantly, that the biggest part about this is that revenue distribution is not an even split. It is also then even more.
It should never be an even split.
It would then be, and this was brought up, that it should be based on brand value. That is something that's incredibly important
now.
That doesn't happen in the SEC. It's not based on brand value. It's an even split. It's an even split in the
bullshit.
SEC.
They get the
Where does it say that it's based on brand value?
Huh?
You're saying that in the SEC right now that certain teams get more money because they're bigger brands. That's not true.
No, what we look at is the TV deal. But what you're forgetting in that contract is every other sport that exists. It's not just football that gets that money, bud.
I know. I understand that.
Okay. You do realize that Vandy, as an example, was the most watched baseball team in the country last year, not named LSU.
Yeah, but baseball's this much of the amount of money.
Okay, women's basketball, what you going to do? All right. So I come down to the point of the bottom line for me is, why don't you want to keep conferences?
I don't. Okay, because at the end of the day, what you're talking about, and you keep referencing this, is that eventually it's just going to become two conferences that go head to head with one another, an NFC and the AFC. That to me is not much different than talking about projecting something like this, because those two conferences are just going to be two 35-team conferences that are separated into, let's say, 4 divisions each.
Philip, you can leave if you like, but Joe, the bottom line is, first off, let's get to I'm not going there. Let's get to the realistic point of this instead of debating it. It's not going to happen. Sorry, it's not going to happen. Greg Sankey,
right now,
it's not going to happen. If you think that any SEC commissioner over their dead bodies will allow this to happen, you got another thing coming along with the Big Ten.
I don't disagree that this entity's plan will probably not be the one that is pitched and enacted on. I think, in what I said earlier, I really think that the Big Ten and the SEC analyze this. They take the information from it, and then with their, what do they call it, a joint venture or whatever, they're smart enough to use that period of time to sit and break it down in that panel or board or whatever the hell they called it, and try to figure out how they can pivot off of it. Because there are useful aspects to this.
The SEC and the Big Ten don't want to pivot shit off of their conference now. Meaning, like, for example, there's no team really that the Big Ten wants to get rid of. No real team that the SEC wants to get rid of. Right?
Yeah, but they want to be able to add
that's
the
cute.
top 3/4 of the other conferences and then just lose the shit ones.
Okay. So basically what you're telling me is that they're already doing it.
Yeah.
while maintaining to some extent the same spirit that you've had of college football, correct?
Well, we're realistically not going to have the same exact spirit of it.
Basically what they're trying to do, which won't work, is they're trying to get one collective voice or bargaining agreement that isn't going to work without the conferences. They're not going to give up their power. So when you talk about realistically how this would play out, it won't. Maybe they take some things. Maybe you're right. Take what? The regular season. There's nothing wrong with the regular season. Not shit wrong with the regular season.
I don't disagree with that.
Oh, you know what you need to work on? If you think you have a problem, fix the playoff. And you know how you fix that? Here's just how maybe it should work. Don't have automatic qualifiers and let the best teams that you want to rank them. It's quite honestly, Joe, it's where every other sport legitimately, works off of a winning-loss system.
No, because we can't do that in college football. So then we immediately turn back to the committee making the decisions and then everybody being dissatisfied with the committee making the decisions. BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.